Hello there, my name's Tim Walter. I'm a geomancer and a life coach. I just want to show you a little clip of Hamish Miller, my great mentor from some years ago. I was reminded of this clip this morning as I was out first thing as the sun was coming up here at home in the Yorkshire Dales, and to see the sunshine just gently coming over the hill reminded me of a little story that Hamish used to tell about when his life started to change, when he started to feel that things weren't quite right. So this clip is from my DVD that I made with Hamish some years ago. The DVD is called Hamish on the Parallel Community. Here he is talking about his business and then explaining once again about his near-death experience.
Like everybody else, I was in the rat race for a long time, and I had a factory and 100 people, and my world was the survival in the factory and the making stuff and selling it and doing all the things that one does. And total involvement. I just accepted that the work ethic was the big thing, and I can understand how people get absolutely trapped into that because you believe it's the most important thing in the world. Well, the business developed. It's one of these inevitable things that anybody in business knows about. I mean, we started off with 10 people. And then it began to get difficult for me to find enough work for 10 people, so I decided we need a rep. And once you need a rep, you go from 10 people to 25 people because you've got to pay for the rep and all that system that keeps going up. And then we developed, and eventually we were employing 100 people. It started off as an engineering project, and I loved working with steel and iron and things like that. And it was in a little cow shed. And the development from the cow shed to a factory employing 100 people was immensely satisfying. But at that time, it left me with absolutely no margin for anything else in my life at all. I realised eventually, after a while, that I wasn't doing the design work that I enjoyed. It was frantic stuff to try and cope with or get work in. And there was no joy about it at all. And I felt that there was a dimension missing, and at that time I didn't know what I know now. One of the cathartic things that happened is a very small thing, like pushing a switch. I'd had a long hard day, and I was about 2 miles from the house, and I looked over and there was a beautiful red gold sunset, and on the crest of the edge of the field there was black oak trees with their branches all there, and I thought, God, that's so beautiful. I wish I had time to look at it. And something clicked inside. What are you talking about? You have got time. Stop the car. Which I did, and I sat there, not in the car, I went over to the fence and leaned on this fence and I watched the sun go down. And it was a cathartic moment because it was probably the turning point of realising that what I was doing wasn't what I wanted to do. And then I think it was a month later I was coming down the track to do the same sort of thing again, to go up to London to talk about some furniture and all that sort of thing. Beautiful morning, and I had a very old 14th century house, drive down 5 acres of land in Sussex, and I had a gardener who used to come part-time, and as I was coming down, this gardener came in his battered old van, and he pulled onto the grass, and as I passed, tearing up to London, he looked out and he just grinned at me and shook his head. And I thought, God, you've got it right. You are going to spend this beautiful day in this beautiful place in Sussex, and I, in order to employ you, am going up to London. And that was another cathartic moment. I said, I've got it completely wrong. That started the whole business of the realisation that the race was not worth a candle, that the money behind it was not worth a candle. It was the communication with people and nature that was really worthwhile. And that was a significant turn in my whole life. We were working on the top end of the market, and the top end of the furniture market is the competition is totally global, and the stress of doing that is quite enormous. And then there was a little bit of a turn down with the recession of the late 70s, which was very difficult to ride. And one of my directors died, and I said I'll just take over what he's doing because we really can't afford to get somebody else in this thing. And the other one, the financial one, went out to New Zealand. And right in the middle of all of that, I was taken suddenly ill on one Thursday evening. Found myself whisked into hospital on the Friday and was operated on the Saturday. and in the middle of the operation I died. I had an out-of-the-body experience which profoundly changed my thinking on absolutely everything, because it is a unique experience. You don't have to go through it to get through into a stage of understanding what we're talking about, but it helps. And to me, I was so rigidly into the disciplines of manufacture that I hadn't really had time to think about other things. And it profoundly changed my thinking. I had to wipe out the company. Actually, just was taken out by the bank, and I retreated to Cornwall. This hill at the back here has always drawn me. It's drawn me for years, and I had to find a way of living. Now I had been working on every Wednesday evening, being taught blacksmithing by my works director. So when I came down here, I said, "What am I going to be?" Because when I was 6 years old, my mother asked me what I wanted to be, and I said, "I want to be a blacksmith." And she said, "No, you must get a proper job." And I said, "Well, what is a proper job?" And she said, "A doctor or a dentist or a lawyer or a civil servant." And I said, "What does a civil servant do?" She said, "I don't know, but it's a proper job." Anyway, I after 53 years, I thought when I came down here, I will earn a living as a blacksmith, and I have never regretted a moment of giving up the manufacturing bit and giving up the big monies. Actually, it's a very huge advantage for me now to have been in a position at one time making a lot of money, because I recognise the real value of that, which is very little indeed. I came back here after I had my near-death experience, and I found this hugely restful, magical place. The view all the way around, I think it's one of the finest views in Europe, and it's incredibly peaceful. I was going along very happily with the whole factory thing and it working and all that sort of thing, and then I became ill. I had a long chat with a surgeon and his two assistants who had a look at me and said, "There is something seriously wrong with your inside. We can't find out what it is. We'll have to go in and operate." And then I had a long chat with an Irish night sister who was absolutely wonderful and just talked to me about death, and nobody had done that before. And she was so incredibly matter-of-fact and assessed my chances at maybe 50-50 it would be. And she was absolutely lovely, and we talked long into the night about what was going to happen and all that. And the next thing I knew, I was down in the I suppose it must have been the chap who did the anaesthetic, and I was at pains to tell him I was 12 stone and would he please give me enough of his medicine. Anyway, the next thing I knew was waking up on the operating table, and I looked up, and the surgeon and his two assistants that I've been talking to the surgeon turned to his assistant and says, "Betty, you're too late, chaps." And I thought, that's odd, because I had all my senses, and I suddenly realised I wasn't seeing him from the operating table, I was seeing him from up top, and it was extraordinary to look down and see me lying on the table. And I had absolutely no fear, very strange. So I was really seriously interested in what was happening. No fear at all. And then I saw the nurses clearing up the place and starting to switch the lights out. And the next thing was that I seemed to go further up and into a thick mist. And again, there was no fear. It was total peace, total calm, total acceptance. A little tinge of regret at leaving the body that had been so good to me for so long. And then gradually the mist formed into a tunnel. And my tunnel was a great long thing with aluminium sheets and sort of peach light behind each sheet, going back and back and back and back. And I wasn't me. I was a long aluminium tube with rounded ends, and in a place of total peace, no coercion to do anything, absolute compassion, total understanding. And then I became aware of a vague light at the end of the tunnel. As soon as my mind was aware of that, the tube started to travel very slowly along the tunnel. And when it got to the end, it stopped. And then I came out of it as a babe, about 3 years old probably, and probably with a nappy on, if you like. And it was just an expression of total innocence, really. And I remember there was no fear at all. I remember seeing this area in front of me, which I can only describe as like Carrara marble floor, and no people, and no buildings, and nothing like I'd ever seen. Sort of misty forms that were vaguely architectural. And then the beings, I was aware of beings, but I couldn't see them or anything, but they were there, and their minds were totally compassionate, total understanding of how I felt. And it was extraordinary, because I wasn't the least bit afraid. I was curious, and I really wanted to know what was happening, and I was aware of the voices saying, this is where the language, I haven't got the proper language for this. This is the entrance to where we are. That's the nearest thing I can get. These are some of our concepts, and if you can contribute to these concepts, or if you can even understand them, you're very welcome to come and join us. And I was given the idea, and I can't even tell you what the concepts were. I mean, it was to do with the colour of music and all sorts of things that are way beyond our five senses, really. And they said, you've got all the experience of all of your lifetimes here. You've got all the time in the universe to make up your mind. And I looked at some of these concepts, and I thought, I don't even understand. And I said, if you like, I think I ought to go back. And there was a universal chortle, not of laughing at me, but laughing with me. And they said, we think you should. So I got into the tube again and started hurtling down the tunnel. And I was aware that at the other end, I could only describe it, there was great shards of glass, broken glass at the end, and I thought, I'm going to come back into a great deal of pain. But in the event, I went hurtling through these things without any effect at all. And the next thing I remember was somebody tapping on my skull and saying, is there anyone in there, Mr. Miller? And I was desperate to tell them about the great joy that I'd had in my journey up to the other place. And I couldn't, because I was absolutely asleep, and it was an extraordinary experience, and I came back with a totally different set of values. I had every sense was tweaked up a degree, if you like, and everything I touched, everything I heard, everything I saw was as I had never seen it before or never heard it before. And I was also totally aware of the energy of everything and the connection between everything. I could almost see the joins, if you like, of the energy line. But I'm not suggesting for a moment that you have to go through the death experience to have your perceptions moved up to another level, because there are people perfectly, and millions of perfectly normal people whose perceptions are at that level already. So I'm not claiming to be anything unique at all. It's just that I'm more sensitive, I think, to earth energy, which I've been specialising in for the last 25 years, certainly than I was before. I decided at that time that I did not want to go on with the life I'd had before, because I could see all the things wrong with it. And I came down to Cornwall down here and sat up here and recuperated in remarkable time.